Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Meredith and today is NaNoWriMo Day 8 and we are trying a writing experiment. I just think it's fun to try something new with a story that I'm kind of doing a zero draft of, so there's a lot of room for experimentation. And today's experiment is dictation. So I've never tried dictation before, except 2 days ago, I wrote down a bunch of notes using dictation because I wanted to work out at the same time and I finally figured out how to do it. So I tried it out for notes and it worked super well. So now I want to try it out with actual prose, but I've definitely heard that people get a really high word count in doing this, and I need to boost my word count, especially because Thanksgiving is coming up. I'm starting to think that I'm not going to be able to get a whole lot done during that time. I think I'm going to be away and I didn't plan to. So I need to get a high word count in. So for trying out dictation, we are not just going to free-for-all. We are going to do a couple steps just to figure out how dictation works and see what is kind of the best format for me. I'm going to try out 4 different ways of doing dictation, and then there's going to be an editing stage. Number 1 is going to be sitting versus standing. So I'm going to write for a certain amount of time sitting down, and then I'm going to write for a certain amount of time standing up and pacing. I feel like probably sitting down is going to be better, but also sometimes your brain likes to just go while you walk around. Like that's why people walk around when they're on the phone, and I definitely do that. I want to see if I can get a better word count in when I'm pacing than when I'm sitting. And then I want to try a second thing, which is looking at the Word document as I'm dictating. So I'll be talking to it, and also my fingers will be fixing things, spacing down, adding quotation marks, grammar edits as I go. And then the second way I want to try it is to not look at all at the computer, like have the computer faced away from me, just talk, just see what happens, and I'll look at it later. And I want to see which one of those can I get a higher word count. And then the final phase will be the editing. I will update later and let you know how it went with the editing and if it was a huge pain in the butt, or if it was like good to refresh my memory and just like go back through it and enjoy reading it over again. And so I kind of just want to like figure out if dictation is ever a good idea for me, or if I just think better when I'm like seeing the words come out on the page. And I think this will be really interesting because I'm a very, very visual person. And so I really like seeing the words. So I'm really excited to try this. I'm not planning on switching to dictation, but depending on how today goes, there could be possibilities. Okay, phase 1, let's go. It's just sitting on my bed, looking at the computer screen and fixing things as we go. I think we're gonna go for a half hour. Okay, that was nuts. So in 25 minutes, I just wrote 1,100 words. So that doubles my average speed. And average means like when I'm having a good writing session. Not like amazing, but like good. So I doubled my average word count in 25 minutes, over 1,000 words. Wow, I'm actually floored. Like I was hoping it would be that good, but I wasn't sure. And I have to tell you, I had a really slow start. The sound of my own voice, just talking my story out loud, is like just weird to me. It was a very strange transition mentally from like keeping all this in my head just between me and the keyboard, and now it's like out in the air. The story's just kind of like in the ether now because I've spoken it out loud, and it was just strange. Definitely there were some weird spellings of character names and places in there, but in general I think it did such a good job. And I didn't really stop to edit. I mostly just did like line breaks for like new characters speaking, new thoughts, new lines of dialogue. And I think that that really helped because that'll keep things clear in the editing. So I liked it. I liked sitting there and kind of looking at it every once in a while and typing. All in all, this was great. I really enjoyed that. I was nervous about writing this scene using dictation because it's a scene I've been really looking forward to, and I kind of didn't want to like waste it because I didn't know how this was going to turn out, and I feel like I really wanted to just like really get into it. But it was a good conversation. That was like just very, very exciting, and we still have to keep going. So, okay, let's do the next 25-minute one, but I'm going to pace. I think what I'm going to do is pace in that corner over there. So I'm going to go do that, and I will be back in another 25 minutes. Okay, this is so much fun. Like, I'm getting really into the story. So, I just wrote for another 25 minutes and got 1,180 words. So, almost exactly the same as I did last time. I thought I'd get more because I started so slow last time, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm averaging out at like over 1,000 words every 25 minutes. That is so efficient. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. The thing is, it's going to cost me time in the editing. On the actual pacing itself, I really like the movement aspect. Like my brain was just like going a little faster, I felt like, when I was pacing. But I think if I had it hooked up to a mic, that it would probably work a little bit better with the pacing because I feel like I could just hold this up to my mouth and just be like walk around and not have a fear that I wouldn't pick it up. So that's something to try. I think this only hooks up to my iPhone, so I'd have to like get a different attachment. But all in all, pacing was cool. I liked it, and I got a really good word count. I'm over the word count for today, which is really great. But I want to do one more round, so I don't have time for all four. But basically, the first one I did was already 2-in-1. That was sitting down, and it was looking at the screen and typing. So now I've been sitting down, standing up, and now I'm going to do one where I'm not at all looking at the screen. I'm not fixing anything. I am just going to close my eyes and I'm going to talk. And whatever comes out, that's what I'm going to edit. And this is probably not going to be as efficient, but I want to see if I can just be expressive, be imaginative, and just see where the story takes me in 25 minutes. Yeah, that was just like easy. I think the one thing was I always like kept trying to like look over, and I should have like turned the laptop away from me. So, oh, my word count was another 1,100 words. No matter how I do dictation, that's just kind of what's happening right now. So about 1,100 words every 25 minutes. I got that 3 times in a row. So I feel like that's just kind of what it is. So for today, I got 3,300 words, and that is what I'll add to my NaNoWriMo for day 8. That makes me feel great. And then I'll let you know kind of how the editing process goes, how I'm feeling about it. So I will be back then, and we'll finish up the video at that point. But my takeaway is just that like this is so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Well, I did not expect it to take this long, but it's now 2 days later, and I have finished the editing. I'm wearing the same outfit for aesthetic consistency, but it is in fact 2 days later. So how'd the editing go? It took about 3 hours. I didn't expect it to take that long. The dictation was really not readable, so I really had to majorly edit a lot of words. So altogether, let's say it took me about 4 hours. So that's about how long it would have taken me to do if I was writing it without dictation, with probably a little bit of distraction and maybe some breaks in there. So I usually write about 1,000 words an hour. That's like pretty consistent for me. And so I was writing double speed with dictation and then taking about 45 minutes for each 1,000 words to make them look like how they would have looked if I had typed them out as prose. In my mind, that amount of time of editing afterwards is a drawback. However, the editing process was so much less exhausting than writing fresh words of a story that you're kind of mostly pantsing. Even though it taking a long time was a drawback, the benefit was that I only spent 1 hour with really, really difficult, just taxing work. And the other 2.5, 3 hours was really fun work that I could do around family, and I could do it with music playing. Even though that's a drawback to spend about the same amount of time altogether on the same amount of words, I really liked kind of the split between the really heavy work and the lighter work. I think in general, the prose was not as good as if I'd written it out while looking at the screen. Like as I was editing, there was kind of a lack of detail. And I was really focused on the dialogue, and so it almost read a little bit more like a screenplay, which I thought was interesting. Like I didn't have the presence of mind to like add in like detail about where they were. It's like I just wanted to keep progressing the scene forward really fast. And so I left out a lot of things, and then I had to add that in the editing. The stuff that I wrote while dictating was just a lower quality prose than if I was looking at the screen. So that is another con. So, general takeaways from the editing process was that it was fun and easy to edit because it wasn't the editing where it was like, what's the perfect word choice here? What is kind of the most effective way to do this? It was much more mechanical. It was just like, how do I make this look like words that someone else could read and not have questions about? And I mean, that kind of editing is just so much more low key. I didn't mind it at all. It's not something that would make me think like, oh, well, I have to edit after, so I don't want to do it. Okay, that's all on the editing. Now let's talk about the 3 different ways that I tried dictation. Now that I've had a day and a half to ruminate on the 3 different ways that I did it, I have a couple more thoughts. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to rank them by which one I would be most likely to do again and which one I would be least likely to do again. Let's start with number 3, least likely. So I would actually put the one where I was not at all looking at the page as number 3, least likely to do again. And the reason for this is that it created a huge block of text that took twice as long to edit. Like I spent like half the time editing that last portion because there was no breaks, there was no indication of who said what, there was no quotation marks, and it just took a lot of time to kind of sort through that. So I don't think that that style would be worth it just simply for the trade-off of having to edit for so long afterwards. But I did really enjoy the focus that that method gave me. I felt like I was really like head in the clouds. I felt like I could visualize the story pretty well. And so that's kind of when I felt like I probably had the deepest focus with dictation. However, in my mind, the point of focus is number 1, to get really into the story and to have really good quality writing. But I didn't think the writing was any better quality than any of the other ways that I tried it. And the other thing that focus helps with is getting a higher word count out because you're not thinking about each word that you're just trying to like grasp for, is that you're just in a flow state and you're just writing. And so it's like, even if I felt like the focus was better, the 2 things that focus would actually help didn't seem to be any different, which was quality and quantity. For that reason, the only thing that it really had on the other 2 methods was just the way I felt about it. And that's super important, but I also think that I felt just fine about the other ways. Okay, coming in at number 2 is walking around and pacing. This I would be not the least likely to, but I probably wouldn't necessarily want to do it again without a couple modifications. Again, with the pacing, I had the same number of words. I think the focus was the least good of all of them because my mind had to think about something else. I had to think about like, okay, where should I walk? Don't bump into anything. Like it had like something else to think about there. And a lot of times that really helps people. I felt like it was taking away from something. I don't think I've ever tried to write while walking before. Talking about your feelings like to your friend on the phone, I think is a different situation than trying to come up with prose. And so that kind of like ambulatory, like hoping that it would kind of like induce a flow state wasn't really happening for me, but it was fine. Like there wasn't a problem with it. I just don't think that it helped in the way that I was thinking that pacing might help. And so I don't think there was really a benefit to it over just sitting down. But it also wasn't bad, right? Like I think in my video clip after I did that, I was like, hey, that was fun. I felt like my brain was like moving forward, like with my body. Like I liked the motion that it created in my thoughts, but it wasn't necessarily faster. It was just like I enjoyed the feeling, and it was something I'd never tried before, so I liked it. I could imagine a mood striking me and being like, okay, I just really feel like walking right now. I actually might use this for doing notes and brainstorming and plotting because I think that that is a much better format for walking around. And that's kind of what I was doing when I was at the gym the other time when I tried it for the first time. Maybe the walking around is better for like just trying to find ideas rather than trying to put down the right ones. And then coming in at number 1, of course, is just sitting down and actually having eyes and hands on the keyboard on the computer and hitting, the return bar and adding quotation marks and just kind of doing little edits as I go. Because what this does is it actually gives me the visual cues, and so I'm still being very visual with the computer and seeing the story as I'm writing it out and understanding what someone's just said, so there aren't as many repeated words or phrases. And also I'm able to do it twice as fast as I would if I was just typing it with my fingers. And I feel like that's really worth it. And then of course you've got the editing on the other end, but it's not that much editing because I've been doing a little bit as I go. If there was a mode of dictation I'd try again, it would be just sitting down and looking at the screen while I'm dictating. Because if there's ever a day where I need to get a really high word count and I have very little time, this would be perfect. So I think I'm going to keep this in my back pocket. I think the prose came out just lower quality, so I'm not going to do it all the time. I'm not going to make the switch. But I think there are moods when this would be a really fun thing to do again, and just to know, like, I always have the option if the words are coming really slow or I'm really pressed for time. This is a super valid way that I can make a lot of progress in my story. And I feel like my imagination was kind of fired up a little bit after, and I was just like thinking about it and really I was just enjoying what I was doing. I feel like I really hadn't gotten to that place in NaNoWriMo previously. So I'm really glad that I did this. If you try dictation or if you write with dictation, let me know your tips and tricks because I know very, very little about it. And I would love to know ways that I can make this easier and that I can help the editing process go faster. So anything that you want to tell me about dictation, I would love to hear. And if you've never tried it before, give it a shot. You might like it. And it's also just fun to try something that you've never tried before. Okay, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you subscribe if you haven't already to see what else I'm doing this NaNoWriMo. We are trying out new writing challenges every week. And give this video a like if you enjoyed the content. Happy writing with NaNoWriMo. I hope all is going well. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.